Hello and welcome to Purely in Conversation, Later Life Lending from Pure Retirement with me, Jane Mullen.
I think the most surprising was probably how varied a customer experience could be. And the big one that's out there at the minute is the discussion paper, which is DP25-2. Yeah, catchy. Really catchy, aren't they? But it's a biggie.
Well, welcome to another episode of Purely in Conversation with Pure Retirement. I'm delighted to welcome Kelly Melville-Kelly, Director of Risk, Policy and Compliance at the Equity Release Council. Hi, Kelly.
Good afternoon.
And so nice to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, wonderful. Let's just jump straight in. What started you on your journey into the Equity Release Council?
I've been in financial services for 25 years. Probably shouldn't say that out loud, but I have been. And I actually started as on the counter at a building society before I did my mortgage exams and then financial advisor exams, and then worked my way through. And then I moved to a lender, and it's when I was with the lender that I first really became aware of later life lending and lifetime mortgages. And it gave me my passion and my love of this industry. So when the role came up 4.5 years ago at the Equity Release Council, to me, it was a chance to shape standards in a part of the industry that genuinely makes changes for people. You know, it's life-changing. So I jumped at the chance to move across to the council. And I think what the council also had that I really wanted to move there for that reason was because I was drawn to the council's strong focus on consumer protections and doing the right thing for the industry. And I haven't regretted it since.
Oh, wonderful. That sounds great. And for those who aren't quite familiar with the Equity Release Council, who are they and what do they do?
So the Equity Release Council is the representative body for the UK's equity release sector. Now, our work has increasingly, over the last couple of years, actually spanned wider than that into the later life lending landscape. Where we're slightly unique compared to other trade organisations is that we represent the whole customer journey. So from funders to lenders to advisors, surveyors, legal. So we represent right across the board, which gives us a unique perspective. And we're also a standard setter. So as well as doing the traditional work that a trade association does, we expect all of our members to go over and above regulation and adhere to the standards that we set.
Okay. And in terms of your role, Director of Risk, Policy and Compliance, tell us about your current role and what your responsibilities are.
Yeah, so if I build on that standard piece, I mean, my role, we're really small. For the Equity Release Council, we've only got 8 full-time members of staff, so we're much smaller than people expect us to be. So my role actually encompasses quite a lot from regulatory engagement, policy development, member oversight, the standards delivery. So if I give you an example, this year in May, we launched Standards 2.0, which was probably the biggest overhaul that we have had of our standards in quite some time. And what we did is that we looked at where there was duplication, especially with consumer duty. We stripped it out. We made it much easier and accessible for all of our members and the public to see. And we introduced a consumer charter. So a real simple, easy, customer-facing charter which said what customers can expect when they engage with a member of the Equity Release Council. And the final big piece of work that we did on that was introduce a 6th product standard. So the 5 product standards, 4 of them are well established, which are your no negative equity guarantee, your tenure for life or your ability to live in the home for your life. We've got fixed or capped rates and the ability to move. 4 years ago, when I joined, we introduced the right to make payments, so that every product now comes with the ability to make overpayments to offset interest. And I was delighted that we actually launched our 6th product standard in May. And it was about creating an equal playing field for people going into care. Because previously, very much, if someone moved into a residential home, predominantly most of the early repayment charges are waived, but that wasn't the case if someone had family and they were moving into someone's home with a full-time nurse. So subject to the medical certificate, the playing field is now level. So regardless of what route you choose, if you need to go into care, if it's with a family member or into a residential, the early repayment charge will be waived.
Fair and equal.
Yeah, equal playing field, that's what it's all about.
In terms of the mystery shopping exercise that you did recently, it was across 30 advisor firms. Tell us a bit more about that. What were your findings?
This is one of the best initiatives we've done in terms of what we've learnt about what's really happening in the industry. So you're right, Jane, we looked at 30 advisory firms. That was a mixture of small, medium, large size firms. And we actually got a mystery shop company to do the analysis and the interviews for us. And that started an initial approach through into fact find right up to recommendation. Now, not every journey progressed the whole way to recommendation, and that in itself told us a lot of information. But what we found with that is it gave us a real balanced picture of how equity release advice is being delivered in practice on the ground, and that's helping to shape the future work that we do on oversight, the future work we do in engagement, and the future work we do in standards development.
Okay. And through that shopping exercise, what did you find the most surprising?
I think the most surprising was probably how varied a customer experience could be. So if you think we've got the same regulation and every firm was a member of the council, you would expect there to be a similar customer experience. And whilst there was some similarities, I think the biggest surprise for me was how different firms adapted and took on board that regulation. So I think it highlighted for me the importance of training. It highlighted the importance of getting the fundamentals right and making sure that members, especially advisor members, have guidance and know what good looks like.
Yeah, definitely. And within your last 4 years at the Equity Release Council, how have you seen things change?
Gosh, if you think of the last 4 years, what the sector's had to deal with, I mean, if you roll back 4 years, we were recovering from the pandemic. We then had the Truss era and everything that came with it. We've had political uncertainty. We've obviously had the war in Ukraine. Then we've had consumer duty and regulation. And more recently, we have had a lot of discussion papers and consultation papers from the FCA. And I think one of the biggest shifts that we've seen from a council point of view is that much more forward-looking and collaborative approach that the council is. We're no longer just focusing on product-specific issues, but we're looking wider, broader, making sure that the conversations we're having are about later life planning, not specific products. We're looking at vulnerability, we're looking at digital transformation, and even things like climate. So the conversations that we're having are much more varied than what we have had. And I think that's been our reaction to how fast and how different the market's become. But I think the biggest thing has been the mind shift. I think that the last 4 years, everyone's been on a journey. And as I said, later life lending isn't about a product. It's about what's right for a customer and the best outcomes for the customer. And I think that's been the biggest change over the last 4 years.
Yeah, they're at the centre of it all, aren't they? Definitely. And in terms of the lifetime mortgage industry, if you could change one thing, what would that be for you?
If I could wave my magic wand, what I would change is, and I'm going to sound really corny, but I'm going to say it anyway.
Go for it.
But I would really love later life lending to be recognised across all of financial services. And I mean wealth advisors, financial advisors, mortgage advisors, because I think it's really genuinely sad that we have got such an amazing product and proposition that isn't right for everyone, but it should be part of a toolkit that people have. It should be one of the options that's considered because it does change lives.
Yeah, very much part of the conversation is a holistic approach for sure. And what do you think the market does well, but also what do you think it could do better?
I think what we do really well, and something I think we're all proud of, is the consumer protections that we've championed for the last 30 years, and particularly in the last 5 as we've developed those standards. And when you think of how far we go to protect consumers that are a bit older, I think there's a lot to shout about and a lot that other industries can learn from of the work that we do. So I would definitely say that those powerful safeguards are one of the best things about the sector that we have. Where I think we could potentially do better is around consistency. It's around making sure that we're not just tick boxing and that we are having robust conversations and exploring alternatives, whether that be later life or mainstream or somewhere in the middle.
Okay. And just to follow on from that, I'd love to know what your biggest tips are for both new and established advisors within the industry. So if we could start with looking at those hoping to enter the market, what would your biggest tips be?
So my biggest tip for anyone entering the market will be know your customer. And I mean, really know your customer, listen to the words they say, their opinions, their worries, where they're going on holiday, what their dogs' names are called, capture everything, not just what's on your form, because that's really demonstrating that you've got to know that customer and what their hopes and aspirations are. I don't think later life lending is about numbers. It's about people making some of the most important decisions they're ever going to make in your life. And you have to get to know your customer to do that. So one of the biggest tips I say to everyone, whether new or established, is the consumer duty. I call it the prove it duty. So it's not just about knowing your customer, but it's about evidencing it and being able to demonstrate how much you have got to know the customer, how the alternatives that you've explored and that you've documented that and captured it. So for me, it's about knowing your customer, really knowing them and capturing and evidencing that you've done that.
And what about those that are sort of more established within the industry? What would your take be on that?
I think keep that mindset front and centre, but keep pace with the changes. There's been so many product innovations over the last couple of years. Regulations changed, consumer duty has changed how we do things. And if you're not keeping abreast of that, you're going to fall behind. So for me is, know your customer, but make sure you're keeping up to date with the changes, including the regulatory ones that have come out.
Yeah, you're right. And I think there's so much information and support out there from lenders, the Equity Release Council. There's no shortage of support and information. So yeah, absolutely. It's important to keep up. And just to loop back round to the Equity Release Council, what's the latest news and what would you really want our listeners to take away from today about what's going on with the council at the moment?
I think it's been a really active year for the council. We're continuing to strengthen the oversight framework that we have to ensure that we have consistent standards across the sector, and we're using a lot of the outputs from the Mystery Shop programme in order to do that. We're expanding our reach with new membership categories. So we're hoping to welcome lead generation with a specific code of conduct for that. And we have also launched 2 new forums in the last couple of months, one for international. So we have many members that are actually from across the world that look to the UK as best practice. So we've got members in Canada, throughout Europe and Ireland. So we've now got an international forum to really champion the work that the council in the UK does on that. And we've also established a surveyor forum, because we have quite a few surveyor firms now in membership. And that tends to be one of the common queries and challenges, especially from advisors about criteria, this. So we're really hoping that by having that surveyor forum, we can actually get to the cub of a lot of issues and drive that area forward as well. Some of the other big projects that we have on is vulnerability. So we are working with a company called Inclusive Outcomes. So we're doing quite a lot of work on a white paper that will be published, but we're following that up in November with a project called Safe Steps. And that is, we're going to work collaboratively with many of our members, I think 25 firms, to identify different areas of customers in vulnerable circumstances and get real examples of how we can help them. So that will include things like hoarding, divorce, financial capability, deafness, blindness. What can you actually do if you get a customer in those circumstances? How do you document it? What do you do with it? So that's something I'm really passionate about and something that I'm really looking forward to launching. And I think the big thing that I can't have any conversation without talking about the direction of the regulator. So we have seen quite a few consultation papers already out this year. And the big one that's out there at the minute is the discussion paper, which is DP25-2. Yeah, catchy, really catchy, aren't they? But it's a biggie. And the reason I say it's a biggie is it's about the future of the mortgage market. So within that paper, there is a full chapter around later life lending, and it will influence the way the market can go going forward. But I've got to say, there's a massive opportunity in that. For the very first time, we've got the FCA, we've got the regulator really endorsing the later life lending section and saying that actually it's a continued area of focus. And actually they say that if we fail to capitalise on opportunities for responsible innovation, we risk the market being unable to cope with the needs of future generations for mortgage borrowers. So really solid soundings from the regulator that they're now identifying the need for property wealth to be considered for everyone. So it's going to be very interesting to see how we go. But we have to make sure that our voice as later life lending is heard. And that's a big part of the work that I'll be doing between now and the end of the year.
That's great. And it sounds like there's lots of exciting projects on the horizon that you're going to be getting yourself stuck into. So yeah, can't wait to see what happens with that. And in terms of events, you've got one coming up in November. So tell me a bit more about that. What's happening?
Yep, it's up north. So it's in Sheffield on November the 6th. And unlike our London event, which happens in May, this is aimed specifically at advisors. So much more tangible benefits that advisors can come to. So it's a chance to listen to the regulatory issues that are happening, get involved with a lot of breakout sessions, and hear exactly what's happening and how to get involved. So yes, 6th of November in Sheffield.
Brilliant. Okay, remember the date, 6th of November. No, that sounds like it would be a really great event. And yeah, I wish you all the best for it as well.
Thank you.
So Kelly, my final question for you today is, if you could take your younger self out for a coffee, what advice would you give yourself?
I think I'd say two things. Mm-hmm. Trust in what you're doing and be confident. I think all too often everyone doubts what they're doing. And they worry that what they're doing isn't good enough. Provided you give it your all, it works out in the main.
That's good. Have a bit of faith in yourself.
100%.
Thank you so much for joining us on the Purely in Conversation podcast today. It's been brilliant to have you. You've given us so much information and insight into the market, what's happening at the Equity Release Council. So yeah, thank you so much. And we'll speak to you soon.
Thank you ever so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Hi, my name is Jane Mullen, National Field Sales Manager at Pure Retirement. To book an appointment with your telephone business development manager at a time that suits you, please visit the Pure Retirement website at www.pureretirement.co.uk.